Stacy Renee. I am a mindset coach, a life coach, a life on life's terms coach. Tonight we're going to be talking about what if you're wrong? What if? And so I know a lot of people fear being wrong, and maybe we don't even realize that we fear being wrong. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Again, my name is Stacy Renee. I'm a mindset coach. What I help with, what I specialize in, is addiction recovery, codependency, and grief. If you look in the description, you can see that I'm about to have 29 years in addiction recovery, in the helping and healing of that, and helping others along the way to work with addiction recovery, because I had to learn that there's a lot more to it than just the recovery itself, you know. So there's also the codependency, which is typically underneath addiction, and then the grief, because we're going to lose people, and a lot of the things that causes people to relapse or to self-sabotage is losing people. So in tonight, talking about what if we're wrong, that's part of what we're afraid of. If we're losing people, a lot of people are afraid of being wrong, but maybe they haven't even thought of that this is what I'm afraid of. We just have that central nervous system running and having that desire to be right. And most of the time we're actually, probably if we were commuting everything or computing everything, thank you for the thumbs up. If we were computing everything, we would be like, I'm just trying not to be wrong. It's not that I have to be right. It's that I'm trying not to be wrong. And there's reasons that we're doing that, but most of the times we don't understand when we're running on that energy of trying not to be wrong, and when we're running on that and not understanding what is driving us. So we're going to talk about that this evening, about what drives us and in the fear of being wrong. What's doing that? So I have my notes here, and I'm so grateful for you all being here. I'm thankful for each and every one of you who've subscribed to this channel. It means a lot to me. And it means a lot to me, you all, your participation on this channel too. So thank you so much. I have much love and appreciation for you. Actives, you are here, ladies and gentlemen. Your attention, the King of Greece has just entered the live of beauty and knowledge, straight from my 1,222-meter tower. Woo! Well, Actus, I'm glad that you're here tonight. It's always good to see you. So we're going to talk about, does anybody here have problems with fearing that they're wrong? I love that. Thank you, Actus. Fearing being wrong, or do you acknowledge that that's a fear? So we're going to talk about what may be driving this fear, because maybe you haven't even been able. Awareness is the remover of obstacles. Sometimes fears are what have your central nervous system amping up, have given you anxiety, given you, heart troubles, given you, respiratory issues. All of that works together. Digestive issues. Hello, Rodolfo. How are you doing this evening? We're going to talk about what if you're wrong. What if you're wrong? Because I've lived with people in my life that they didn't say I fear being wrong. It's just that it was very important for them to always be right. Right? Sometimes they'd say I wish that I wasn't right all the time, trying to act like they're humble, but they weren't humble. You're never wrong, Rodolfo. Well, I had to learn to take ownership of my wrongs. It was so funny because in recovery, my first year, she would say, and always right, she would say, I would call my sponsor up and I'd be complaining about my ex-husband. And she'd say, well, honey, what was your part in it? And so this is the thing, as we talked about how we can go from one extreme to another extreme. So when she would tell me what was my part in it, then I started taking everything, feeling like everything was my fault. Anybody here feel like everything's your fault? Actress Stacy, your beauty has no limits. How do you make it? What's your secret? Share also your beauty secrets. Well, I think that's because I don't drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes. And I'm not saying that you're not beautiful if you do that. I'm just saying for me. And I keep well with my soul. I keep well with my soul. And if I have to cry, I cry. My eyes are clear because I cry those tears if I need to cry. I'm not holding back. And I have learned to be who I am. And I think that that's a lot of the beauty secrets. Thank you, Actus. Oh, thank you. I try to be positive and sunny because, it's just too much energy to not be positive and sunny. Hello, Star Brand Power. It's good to see you. And we don't talk about, here's the thing, we don't talk about religion and politics on here. We don't talk about my age, and we don't talk about my weight either. And Anthony, I hope that you stay. You're welcome to be here, but we don't talk about that either, the snoring. These are the secrets, right? Well, that's not very nice. And if y'all don't want to be nice in here, then you'll have to go out. Yeah. So, all right, Angie, you did make it, Angie. How are you doing tonight? My friend Kim, who usually does the moderation on here, is not here. But if you're a praying person, I ask that you pray for my friend Kim, because Kim's mom is having surgery right now. And we know how scary that is when our mamas or our kids or anybody we love is having surgery. So she usually gets to moderate. She won't be here, so I'll be doing the moderation. So what we talk about on here is we talk about mindset. We talk about our personal experiences with mindset. We don't talk about anybody in ill will. Thank you, Angie. We don't talk about anybody with ill will. Not me, not anybody in this group do we pick on. We don't bully up in here. If you bully, you'll be put out. Okay? Alrighty. So here we grow. Thank y'all for being here tonight. We're going to talk about what if you're wrong. For some, needing to be right is of great importance. You ever ran into the people who need to be right? Dean, hello. It's good to see you this evening. So sometimes people may not say, I'm afraid of being wrong, but I must be right. It's okay. Thank you, John. Thank you. And I hope you get some blessed and regenerated rest. Sleep well. John London, it's good to see you this evening. I get so excited to see you all, the new and familiar faces, but the familiar faces, we have a great time on here. All right, y'all gonna make me do my moderation. We had a little earthquake here. Was Wasabi Dual. We had a little earthquake here near Cancun, Mexico. I've never been in an earthquake before. It wasn't a bad one. It was so subtle. I was sitting on a sofa and I had my legs in a cross-legged position. And, sometimes if you live in a pier and beam house, a wood house, then sometimes when the washing machine moves, there's a shaking in the house, right? And so I thought, but I live in a cement house. And I thought, what is this? Am I having neurological problems? Because my legs were kind of like, and I could feel my legs vibrating, and they were just sitting there. And then I could see that. I thought, are they doing? Is the washer next door never did that before? So my prayers are with you if you're dealing with a earthquake, because I'd never seen. And then I saw this little thing that I have hanging with those sticky things on the window. It's a little tin thing, and it was like vibrating a little bit. And I'm like, wow, the window's vibrating, and this couch sofa's vibrating, and I didn't know what was happening. Then I got on Facebook, and then Facebook said we had 3 earthquakes down here. Now, this was a very subtle earthquake. I didn't even know it was an earthquake. I've never been in an earthquake, and I just thought my equilibrium was off or something. But yeah, so my prayers are with you. I hope that it's not a bad earthquake. I am wrong sometimes, but the cool thing is that I can admit that I'm wrong now, and I'm not in fear and I'm not in cowering. But there are, I used to be in fear and cowering if I was wrong. I was afraid of being wrong because I was afraid of looking stupid, right? I didn't want to look stupid, so I was afraid of looking wrong. Actus, Dean Dan Don. Yeah. Do you think there's a difference between right, but people try to protect the truth? I do believe there's a difference. I think I understand that question. Do you think there's a difference in being right, but people protect the truth? Yeah, because sometimes I'm right, but I don't need to tell people I'm right all the time, because there's also humility. Is people have to learn some things for themselves, and they may not be asking for your input. And if people don't ask for my input, I typically will not give them my input unless we got one of those relationships where it's like, you know what I think? Right, Angie? If somebody's like closer to me, but I don't, like, even with my friends, a lot of times I don't just tell my friends what I think all the time about their business. Unless they ask me, I don't tell them. So thank you, Dean. Yes, sometimes we're right and we just stay silent. Angie. Oh, okay, you're going to be here? You can do my moderate, and I'm going to add you as a moderator. To manage blocked words and change chat modes in live. Standard can review and remove chat message. Hi. There you go. You need to be a standard moderator. Thank you, Angie. I appreciate you. John London, it's really good to see you. I like your lipstick matching. I like to match, John London. It's all about the matching, isn't it? Dean, because people are always afraid to tell the truth, so it's all dares, Dean says. Sometimes people are, I'm not as afraid to tell the truth now. There's some things I might be afraid to tell the truth about. I'm not in California or Alaska. I'm down near Cancun. I guess there was an earthquake actually in Cuba and it shook down here. I think it was a pretty big earthquake in Cuba and it shook over here. So San Andreas fault line. Is that what it was? So Matthew. No, I'm not famous yet. Robbie Mellon. I'm not always right, but I'm never wrong. Good morning, folks. I have a little pillow in my room that says you can agree with me or you can be wrong. It's got a little cat. So, Kim, I didn't know if you were going to make it. How's your mama doing? How's things going? I was going to have Angie moderate. I should know when I see those thumbs flying because we're sending you prayers. So we're sending your mom prayers too. Rodolfo, Kim, we got Robbie in the house. Actus is here. Wait, Actus is here. Kim, Angie. Okay, thank you. Was Wasabi Duval? Because I wanted to go to the beach tomorrow, but I'm afraid to go to the beach if there's going to be a hurricane at the beach. You're welcome, darling. You take care of yourself. I know that this is stressful. John London's in the house. He says, hi, everyone. Thank you, Kim, for all those thumbs up. So what if we're wrong? You know, there's been a person who needed to be right in my life. You know, I had somebody who they always had to be right all the time, you know, and they would prove themselves right. It would be like, even if you said, okay, you're right, they would still keep proving they were right. That was very important to them, just sitting in the waiting room. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you're here. Angie's going to be your backup. Between the two of you, we will keep the comments down, right? Earthquake predator all time. Okay, well, thank you, was Wasabi Dewal. So they had to be right. They would gloat about being right, and they'd say, I can't help it if I'm always right, and this kind of thing. What if you have proven to be right twice? Why do we need to be right? Everybody gets a turn. See, this is what I want to come down to is everybody gets a turn to be right and everybody gets a turn to be wrong. And why is it so important to be right? So we're going to be talking about that this evening because, you know, like I said, for me, a lot of that was because I was afraid of looking stupid. And so sometimes we find these personalities that they run on that fear all the time, but they're not going to do the self-realization work. And, you know, they may bully people, they may do things. So like this. So I already told you where I'm at. All right. So they would be gloating. And they may have been right, but even if they were not, they had to be right. So why is there importance of being right? Why is there that importance of being right? I don't know if it's just human fear of being wrong or what lies beneath all of that. You know, that what being wrong might mean, like with me, the fear of being stupid. It could be if this is a fear, we may struggle with perfectionism. Some people struggle with perfectionism. I am not Australian, but we have some Australians here. Hello, Logan. It's good to see you. I'm not Austrian. All right. Thank you, Kim. She's quick tonight. All right. So I had a client over the weekend and she had been cut from her job. You know, a lot of people all over the world, I think, get cut from their jobs at these times. And it's a lot of the need to be right or the fear of being wrong is living through uncertainty. Right? Is it's uncertainty. Yes, LOL, Cool J. I am from Texas. You know this. I do not live in Austin. I come from Fort Worth, Texas, and I'm sitting near Cancun, Mexico right now. Thank you, Kim. So I am from Fort Worth. Yeah. Lewis, because I wish it was okay. Spectre, where are you from? I said I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, but I'm sitting near beautiful Cancun. So yeah, you were close. You were close. LOL, Cool J. I like that name too, Lewis, because I don't see the point sometimes. Because if no love, no want to. We have to love ourselves first. Spectre, we don't talk about religion and politics on here. It doesn't matter if I'm Christian or not or anything. I welcome all beliefs. I welcome the Christian. I welcome all beliefs, but we don't talk about that here because we want to respect all beliefs. Okay? During New Mexico, we got mosquitoes. So, had that client over the weekend and she'd been cut from her job and at the beginning of the year. So she had a lot of uncertainty when people get cut from their jobs. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that. So when we get cut from our jobs or when these things happen, that's uncertainty. That's life on life's terms. It doesn't mean you're in New Mexico too, and the mosquitoes can be bad. They can be bad. They can. John London, I don't feel the need to be right, but I see it in a lot of other people. Right. So we're going to talk about that tonight, and why that is. And if it's with us, we can do something about it, or it could be a realization because, like I said, I just didn't want to be wrong because I was afraid of looking stupid. Wasn't so much that I needed to be right, but I was afraid to be wrong because I was afraid of looking stupid. So sometimes I just stayed quiet. But then I really wasn't living a full life because I was afraid of being wrong, right? that's not confusing. So staying attached and detached, it's a lot. Yeah, because you gotta, people have, you gotta read the room and match the energy. I get really bad anxiety, Lewis. Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes that's a fear of being right and wrong, and some people don't know that that's a fear. So what we like to do what I like to do on here is share these experiences so that people can understand where this is coming from, what that fear is, because a lot of people aren't sitting there saying when they get in fear, like over a job, they're like saying, "Why did they let me go?" And then they feel rejected. It depends. Sometimes if you're wrong on something, it could destroy what your philosophy of life. It could. It could, Jason. That's a good point. So when we grow through uncertainty, though, are we going to grow through it or go through it? Because we can start making up stories. Because sometimes we have these childhood pains that we didn't feel good enough, or maybe it's adulthood pains. I don't feel good enough. And so when we don't feel good enough, we'll say, why did I get cut? And why didn't this person get cut? And did I advocate for myself enough? Because a lot of times people are doing great jobs. They just don't advocate for themselves. Hello, Salvador. Hello. And Robbie. At least when we're wrong, we get a chance to be right. It's part of learning, right? Exactly. Exactly. So the client over the weekend, when she first was cut from her job, we dealt with that. Thank you, Salvador. I appreciate that. So when she was first cut I get let go. So we deal with that. And then filling out the resumes and just turning in resumes. So for months, she's filled out resumes. And I've told her, you keep filling out resumes because there's that uncertainty once again when we submit a resume and there's hope attached to them. And so it's like you are not your job. See, some people have to be right all the time because that's who they identify themselves as. That's their false esteem and that protection. What's the conversation about? I just arrived. We were talking about what if we're wrong. I had spoken, what was it, on Friday night or Sunday morning? I was speaking about being willing. Part of the coping skills is to be willing to be wrong. What if I am wrong? A lot of us may have grown up in a house to where we couldn't be wrong, that you had to have the right answer all the time. This also led to the perfectionism. So when we're looking at what lies beneath the need to be right is human fear of being wrong. And what lies underneath that, being wrong might mean. Like for me, it meant I'm going to look stupid. But it may be if there's a fear that if we may struggle with perfectionism and be offended with others if we make a mistake, you know. And so this most likely is a learned behavior, but there's a fear underneath that, which is totally normal because when we look at humans and fears, it's the fear of not getting what we want or losing what we have. This is the survival of the fittest, and fear is a survival skill mechanism. It creates survival mechanisms. Salvador, I'm doing this live. Spectre, the topic is what if I'm wrong? What if you're wrong? John London, true, Robbie, admit when we're wrong, we become right. I am so glad I had to learn how to even admit that I was wrong. I had to learn how to do that because I didn't know how to communicate that. And so that's another reason I like to do these lives and like to connect with you all is sometimes we just don't know how, you know. It's like sometimes if we're wrong, I know for me, sometimes when I was wrong, I would just cower because I would feel stupid, you know, and that would make me even want to be seen less. So it could be a learned behavior. You know, it's just could be a learned behavior. I had a client, like I said, being cut from her job. And so we went through the months of building her esteem of her knowing that while we take these things personally, it's not personal. And she would get interviews and get hopes and then, you know, not get it. And so she's finally learned that she is not her job, right? You're not your job. A lot of people associate themselves with the jobs, but you're not your job. That's something that you do, but that's not who you are. But many of us were trained to think that gives us our self-esteem. That gives us, you know, our sense of purpose is doing that job. But that's not all of who you are. You know, sometimes it's like being a mom. That's not all of who you are. So that's when we can get into the codependency and things like this. Because just because we take care of our kids don't mean they're going to take care of us. Applying for jobs. Yep, I'm applying for a side hustle too. I took losing my last job and said no more of this entry-level garbage is below me, and now I'm in school becoming the scholar I was meant to be. See, we talked about the other night, was it an obstacle or an opportunity? And I like uh, JS and Stillwell. I like that you did that because, yes, a lot of people take these things personal and they don't go to the next thing or they just go through the motions and a lot of the fears in going through the motions, but we can be growing through it if we choose. And, you know, just because we lost this and we didn't feel like we valued ourselves enough in that, we can learn to value ourselves just like you're doing. Okay, Nez, you can't be wrong. I can be wrong sometimes. I have to be like, oh, I misunderstood, or oh, really? Thankfully, I'm not late usually. That was something, you know, that would be embarrassing, but I would do it. And thankfully, I'm not purposely doing things, you know, or being, you know, cowering because sometimes we cower. So we're wrong because we are demanding. I don't know. I'm not very demanding. I do delegate very well, but wouldn't consider myself demanding because I can't take advantage. You could be a problem no problem. Oh, okay. Thank you, Benetti. I appreciate that. Thank you so much to you for liking and subscribing and for all of you who like and subscribe to this. It's quite a trick rocket. I know, right? You're a marine engineer? Very cool. You're serious. Okay. Do you want somebody who agrees with you all the time that you don't have to think much if somebody's agreeing with you all the time, right? I had to learn this. What's my profession? I'm a mindset coach, a life coach, a holistic life coach. Thank you, Sam. So, you know, she had that feeling of not being good enough. She had that fear of rejection, and she had to deal with all of those things. And then, you know, now she's looking at 2 job opportunities. I kept telling her, you're doing the right thing. You're sending in your resume, you're applying for the job, you're doing the right things. You're going to get a job. That's what happens when you do those things. It doesn't happen when we want it to happen. It's walking through that uncertainty. So now she has a choice of 2 jobs. Area 7 lives. It's good to see you tonight. Thank you for being here. And so now she's afraid to be wrong on what job she chooses, right? So it's about learning to trust ourselves. My advice to youngsters. How young are you, Chowdhury? Area 7 lives. Wrong. Never heard of it. I know, right? I had that pillow in my room that says you can agree with me or you can be wrong, because I am a Leo, so there's that stubbornness there. But that I've had that pillow for probably 30 years, so I've had to learn that I can be wrong and it's okay, and how to make an amends when I'm wrong, because I want to clear it up now when I'm wrong. I don't want to hide. I want to learn what I can do better. See, it's an opportunity for our growth if we can acknowledge that. Scorpio. Oh, okay. Scorpio, never wrong. I know. I know Scorpios that are never wrong. Dollar Billingsworth. Okay, well, that probably isn't very nice. Chowdhury. Okay. So, anyway, going back to this. So now she's afraid to pick the wrong job, and it's about what do you want? See, that's learning to trust ourselves when we can realize what do we want, when we're always trying to navigate from the fear. If I just hope I'm not wrong. I just hope I'm not wrong. We're not considering what we could do right unless you're like who was mentioned earlier. Who was that mentioned earlier? That they were Jason. No, it looks like Jason, but it's Jace Stillwell. So it's like, what can I do when I feel like I'm wrong? What can I do? So let me look at the comments, and I have my notes over here so that I can stay on topic, y'all. All right. All right. The Scorpio is, no one's wrong all the time. We all get a turn to be right and wrong. We all get a turn. So, wrong but stubbornly right, right? Louise. Okay. It's Jason. Okay, it is Jason. Okay, thank you. And it is okay to be wrong. Once we accept that we're wrong, we can learn and grow. I got to go and spend time with my lady friends. So does Fort Worth ever cross your mind? Fort Worth always crosses my mind. You have fun with your lady friend. My family's still in Fort Worth, so I go back and forth to Fort Worth sometimes. So thank you for asking. It does cross my mind. I don't listen to that kind of music, but it crosses my mind. That's a George Strait, right? I don't listen to country music much. A little bit, but not a lot. All right, Robbie. Haha, we can always agree to disagree. Exactly. Some people aren't open to disagreeing. So it's about fearing making the wrong choice too. So the thing is that we walk ourselves on eggshells when we're afraid of being wrong, don't we? And I'm glad, Jason, that you don't. And you have fun with your lady friend tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. I hope that you'll join us again. So we walk ourselves on eggshells, sometimes trying to make a decision. We'll stay up all night, walk ourselves on eggshells. And if we know what we want, if we're able to navigate, what do I want? And I had to learn this. When I would go into therapy or coaching all the time, she would say to me, "What do you want, Stacy?" Because we need our choices to guide what it is that we want. Well, hello, hey, from New Zealand, Andrew Harrison. Welcome. Welcome. We're talking about what if we're wrong tonight, and how do we behave and how do we act when we're, feeling like we're wrong? Are we even aware that we're afraid of being wrong? I used to be afraid of being wrong. I've shared this. You're just coming on here. Everybody else has heard me say, I was afraid of looking stupid if I was wrong. That was the driving factor of my fear of being wrong. But I didn't tell people I'm afraid I'll be wrong. I would say I'm afraid of looking stupid. But I couldn't learn new things if I was afraid of looking stupid, because the reality is that sometimes we're going to answer wrong. Even if we know the correct answer, sometimes we blurt out the wrong thing. So we walk ourselves on eggshells trying to make a decision, and we wear ourselves out. It's because we have a codependent tendency and have done what others wanted us, is it because we've had a codependency tendency and have done what others wanted us to do? So part of the fear of being wrong maybe is if we have a codependent tendency and we're afraid of, you know, making a decision somebody else is not going to approve of. I've done that too. I mean, I was a lot younger back then, but I used to do that too. I was afraid that the other people around me would, not like the decision I made. So, okay. Hello, Mama. How are you doing? I look like Celine. Well, I looked like Wonder Woman. No, not Wonder Woman. I looked like the Bionic Woman the other night. That's who they said I look like. So if we have a codependent tendency, we may be afraid to be wrong. The reality is that you're wrong. You learn from it and search out the right answers. Exactly, Andrew. Exactly. Thank you for that. So that's one reason we may fear being wrong. Excuse me, I had gum in my mouth. So, and we wanted to feel safe. We want to feel safe is sometimes the reason that we fear being wrong, is we want to feel safe. What's going to happen if we're wrong? When we question our adult selves, but sometimes we're afraid of other adults. And so like I said, we're afraid of making the wrong decision because other adults, we may get in trouble with other adults. Unless it's our job, I would hope we're not afraid of that. Why would we not be able to have a mutual talk with another adult? Be afraid of being yelled at? Good, Mama. I have sinuses. Robbie, it's okay to be wrong, just like it's okay to lose a game in sport. We are told so much as kids it's bad to be wrong or losing in sports. I know. And it's healing that and letting ourselves, because, the reality is that everybody in this life is going to lose something. So I specialize in grief, coaching too, because we're all going to lose something. We're all going to lose some people. We're all going to lose some things. And so it's hard to recover these things. Some people, there's 300 different types of grief. Actus, you got to go sleep. Well, I am so glad that you got to come here tonight. I hope you gave this a like, and I hope that we'll see you again. I'm going to be on here again Wednesday morning. Thank you. Joseph, it's probably extreme love. Oh, life's a risk. We're going to lose ours. Exactly. We're all going to die in here. I did another live Robbie. Exactly, Stacy. Totally agree. It is so empowering now to admit when I am wrong so that I can learn something new and not live in that fear of being wrong. Good night, Actus. You get you some blessed and regenerated rest. I'm glad that you were able to come on here tonight. Thank you, Louise. So is it because we had extreme, it could be the codependent tendency and have done what others want us to do and we're afraid of making a decision that others aren't going to approve of? Or is it because we had extreme consequences from making mistakes when we were younger or even now, like losing games, like Robbie said? Andrew, it's more about the consequences of being wrong with big decisions. My philosophy is not to sweat the small stuff, focus on what you can control. That's a great philosophy, Andrew. I will pin that. Yes. We have that. I had somebody the other night. Now, this isn't a religious channel, but I do 12-step. I do go to attend 12-step groups and things like this. And there's the serenity prayer. And so sometimes even in my coaching, I'll tell my clients, because when they're not, sometimes we need to keep our mouths shut and let people make their decisions, right? We need to let people make their mistakes, like was said earlier, and stay quiet. And I'm like, that prayer of serenity, grant the serenity to, to change the things I can, the wisdom to, and to know which I cannot, the wisdom to know the difference, is to not, I know the prayer, but it's hard to be on here and do it. Dublin, Ireland in the house. All right, Dublin, Ireland. It's good to see you tonight. To accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There we go. Welcome, Christy. Robbie. Yes. Yes, it was. It is. So sometimes people are afraid of being wrong because they had great consequences, like was said, for being wrong, and they're scared. They're scared. Luis, can you stay on topic, please? Please. We're talking about being wrong. If you want relationship advice, you can email me for one-on-one coaching, okay? All right. Thank you. So, or is it because we had extreme consequences for making mistakes when we were younger or even now? Like I said, some people are afraid of getting in trouble with other adults, you know. Or has there been something tragic and we fear a real tragedy? A real tragedy. Because there are real tragedies in life. And if so, is there guilt attached and that we're still carrying and the fear of making the mistake because we don't want to feel the guilt? There's a lot of things underneath the fear of being wrong, is what I'm trying to get at. So we may fear feeling a certain way again. There may be a feeling that was attached to being wrong that we're afraid of feeling that because there's an umbrella of feelings. You're not fighting, it's just that it's not on topic, darling. So I'm touching on this because part of my program is the self-trust reset. And it means realizing where the protective ego part is the part of being wrong. That's, part of your ego part is I'm afraid of being wrong. And the ego is connected with your central nervous system, your autonomic system, your sympathetic system. And what that means is that when this happens, when we're afraid of being wrong, sometimes our heart may be beating fast. We get anxious. I know when I stand up to go public speaking, I get afraid, and I'm anxious. You did give him lots of chances, Kim. You sure did. You weren't trigger happy tonight. You did good. He just wasn't on topic. Both of y'all put him out. Thank you. I know, right? He just was not on topic. I try to get him to get on topic. But it means realizing where the protective ego part is. That ego is to give you your drive. I used to think the ego is bad. Anybody in here thought the ego was bad? The ego gives you your drive. The ego gives you your willpower, but the ego also tries to protect you. And so sometimes it tries to protect you with the fears from the past, what your perceptive senses have fed it about, well, when this happens or when this, happens, then this is like what speeds up our central nervous system. If I get asked a question and I'm standing in front of the class, I've been there. Like just 2 years ago, somebody asked me, to do something because technology intimidates me sometimes. And somebody asked me to do a technological demonstration in a meeting before, and I felt like this 8-year-old girl. This was my inner child. I felt like an 8-year-old girl standing in front of the class at the chalkboard with one sock up and one sock down and sitting here trying to get the right answer, you know? Ego make us balanced if we can grab it. Yeah, if we can. What it is though is like the ego and the soul, being able to understand whether there's an ego and a soul. So the ego gives you your drive, and we all need drive. We all need to be driven, to get what we want, you know. And so, but the soul, the ego, if you deal with chakras, the ego, when you deal with chakras, the ego is at your solar plexus. It's a bright yellow, and if you're not into that, then just hang in here a minute, okay? But it's at your solar plexus. So I often think that, like in my self trust reset program, it's like the ego's here, the soul's here, and there's harmony in between. Because sometimes with the soul, people may seem like too vulnerable or they may seem too flighty. And then with the ego, sometimes people are too, they may seem more superior. They may seem more like they have to be right. When we can merge that together, we can have confidence because we are right sometimes, but we don't have to gloat about it. It's just that it's an accomplishment, maybe, because we might have had to work hard to get the education to be right. And then with the soul, we don't want to be open and vulnerable all the time to get taken advantage of and be the doormat. So when we merge the soul together with the ego, we create harmony because we know what our intention and motivation is. And this is why I talk about these things so we can discover what is our intention and motivation, because If I'm trying to be right all the time, what is the intent? What's motivating me to try to be right? Harmony is the key word. Yes, it is, Burke Gervader. Burke Gervader. I have to sound it out a few times. Michael Cassaberry, hello. How are you tonight? So, what's driving us, and what is the ego, the soul though? The soul gives us the direction. What do you want? What do you want? So the ego could come from, like, what are we doing? Our human being part. And so the soul comes from the soul is actually our human being. I'm sorry, things are popping up on my screen while I'm trying to talk. The soul is our human being part, and the ego is our human doing part. When we merge that together, is that the electromagnetic field is part of our human doing part, and the quantum field is part of our human being part. I think they're through sending me messages on here. So it's about getting in alignment. The quantum field is like, what do you want? So you stay focused on what you want rather than trying to stay on what you don't want. That's what it is. Thank you. Hi, Terry. How are you doing this evening? So we're talking about why people, what if we're wrong? What if you're wrong? And a lot of people are like, because sometimes people are afraid of being wrong. They must be right. They're too focused on, I have to get this right. And there's reasons that we do that. I'm glad you're doing good. There's reasons that we do that, Joseph. Irregularity and imbalance. Right. When we're not thinking of our intention and motivation. So our intention goes with our mind, right? So that's your human being. Your motivation is what's going to drive you with the ego to do what you need to do to accomplish what it is that you want. So this is why everything rises and falls. Okay. So as I said, I think that the soul is on one side. Now, some people think the soul is in the heart, but the soul is actually not a body part. So we don't know where the soul is. So the soul can be anywhere you want it to be. I like to think of it as the solar plexus, like this, since it's golden yellow like the sun, I think it's like the soul. In ancient world, Greeks called it phronesis. It means practical wisdom. I like that. Thank you, Burke Goderberg. I love philosophy. So, yeah. Thank you, Angie. So, let me get back to my notes to make sure I don't miss anything. So the ego chakra sits right there at the solar plexus. That's where your sympathetic nervous system is. Like your digestive system is right there around the solar plexus. Your respiratory system is close to the solar plexus, and your heart. So when we perceive things, it gives that information to your solar plexus from the ego and the soul. And when we make an intention and motivation, is it in harmony? Harmony. So if we're going from protection alone, it's not harmony. If we're going from the soul alone, it may not be harmonizing. We may be trying to do good, think we're being good. Berke Gerdever, thank you. I hope that you'll subscribe to this channel so we can see you again. Thank you. I hope you have a good night. Thank you so much. So you're very welcome, Andrew. You are very welcome. Are you leaving us, or are you going to stay? So here we grow. I got my other notes here. So I hope that this is making good sense to you. So we talked a little bit about balance yesterday, and I used to focus on balance. And I'm not saying that there isn't in life, but life on life's terms does go up and down. The electromagnetic field, the quantum field. What do you want, and what are you going to do to get it? Right? Asking that your footsteps be guided to what you want to be provided. Okay? All right. Ryan. You still talk? Were you talking about Hawaiian pizza the other night? Because somebody was on here talking. Was that you talking about Hawaiian pizza the other night? So we talked a little bit about that balance and going up and down, just like our heartbeat, just like our lungs, our respiratory, our breath goes up and down. So this is where we gain acceptance, because when we know that we don't have to be stuck to being right, we don't have to be stuck or fear to being wrong. We don't have to be stuck. It's because we want to. It's not personal. It's just like that breath goes up and down. Everybody gets a turn. Everybody gets a turn to be right. Everybody gets a turn to be wrong. Joseph, once in a dignified universe, yes. Hello, Tay Mason. Greetings from faraway lands. So thank you. It was you? Okay. All right. So thank you. Thank you, Joseph. So this means catching ourselves and processing our rather whys. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I doing this? And why is this rather than the what ifs? Because a lot of times in our trying to be right, our trying to keep from being wrong, it's like what if? What if? Because when I would be like, well, what if? Because when I was trying to navigate like a job, when we choose one job or the other, we choose this or the other. Well, what if? What if? And that's a fear indicator. But when we ask why, we can get to know ourselves better and get in line with our intentions and motivations. So here's our notes. So what if you're wrong? Just to sum it up. Hawaiian pizza is delicious, Mama. So what if you're wrong? Sometimes it's hard to catch your bad habits. I know it is. And so we're going to talk about how you can catch it here in the end. Because that's what it is catching yourself before, as you start to see yourself spiral, and I have to catch myself when I see myself spiral because I'm a human being. Sometimes things don't go my way and I have to re-navigate. But I may be certain that this idea was going to work for what I was trying to create, but then maybe it didn't work for what I was trying to create. So then I just get to re-navigate. But before I re-navigate, I might be pondering, oh, what did I do wrong? And that's normal, but it is to catch it. We don't have to be perfect because we talked about the fear. A lot of people have to be right because they're afraid of if they're not right, they're not perfect. Or if they're wrong, they're not perfect. So processing our whys. Why is this important to me? Why am I going to, why do I have to be right about this? Can I not be right about this? Is it okay? Because it's about that safety, right? The safety and that regulation, as was said earlier. But you're right, it is sometimes hard to catch bad habits, and it's just a practice. That's why I say we practice and develop, because we're practicing developing all the time if we choose to be. So just hearing the question can create discomfort. What if you're wrong? And we don't typically, there's people have to be close to me. I don't just ask strangers, what if you're wrong? But for some people, being right is extremely important. So we may not openly admit it. We may even appear humble on the outside, like saying, like somebody I had in my life, they'd be like, I don't always want to be right, but they did always want to be right. So people will sometimes tell you they don't want to always be right, but they do always want to be right, right? So, but underneath that, there can be that powerful need to be right. I've known people who always needed to be right. When they were right, there was often a sense of satisfaction and even gloating, and sometimes they weren't right at all. But still, they needed to win the argument, to prove the point, or to have the last word, right? Sometimes there's that. And it made me wonder, why is being right so important? Is it simply human nature? Or is there something deeper underneath it, right? So I don't think the real issue is being right. I think the issue is what we fear being wrong might mean, right? Does it mean I'm stupid? Does it mean that I'm going to get fired? Does it mean this or that, right? You're exactly right, Andrew. You called it. You get the gold star tonight because that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. That's their sense of safety. But that's a definite need. Okay. Well, so the real issue, maybe the little lady I take care of is always, oh my goodness, Angie, I'm so sorry about that. That must be rough. That's rough. We are very small. I love to go out and look at the stars in the morning. I get out there and thank my source that I'm able to get up, and I go out on the roof and look at the stars, and I realize I'm very small in this universe. I have my purpose. I'm meant to be here, but I'm very small. So, I don't think the real issue is being right. I think the issue is what we fear being wrong might mean. Correct? So, because if I'm wrong, does that mean I'm not good enough? If I'm wrong, does that mean I'm not something important? So, this is why we ask the whys. When we're doing that process and the whys, Most fears come down to two things: the fear of not getting what we want or of losing what we have, right? So when we begin looking through that lens, our need to be right starts making a lot more sense. What am I afraid of? So that's another thing she used to ask me when I would go to my coach years ago. She would say, Stacy, what are you afraid of? Is it afraid of being alone? Is it afraid of looking stupid? Is it afraid of that not being good enough? So looking at that. So when we begin to looking through the lens, our need to be right starts making a lot more sense. For many of us, the pattern was learned early in life. Making mistakes were heavily criticized. Maybe there were consequences that felt overwhelming, maybe not even fair, you know? Maybe mistakes were heavily criticized. You know what I hate is when people use this word. Somebody used it in one of these lives the other night, and it used that word idiot. I hate for people to hear people call other people idiots. Now, some of that maybe is my fear of looking stupid, but I really hate that word, Robbie. For many years now, I'm the first to admit when I'm wrong. I've had my fair share of being wrong, but I don't feel bad for saying, no, I don't either. I don't either anymore. But I had to learn how to make an amends, and that making an amends, not just saying I'm sorry when I'm wrong, but making an amends, you know. So maybe mistakes were heavily criticized. I know rare, never call anybody. I hate when I hear somebody call someone an idiot or stupid because that's not nice. But, you know, I think that there were, or ignorant, exactly. Because some people, though, if they grew up in a house where people said that, and I do believe that that's where a lot of our bullies come from, are in houses where their parents bullied them and called them those names if they didn't get something right, you know. I had somebody one time tell me, don't, something about an idiot, and I'm like, idiot this. Sorry, y'all, if that's offensive, but that's what I said. Anyway, because I don't like that. I'm not tolerant to that. So maybe there were consequences that felt overwhelming. I was obviously younger back then, but yeah. Maybe love, approval, or safety seemed connected to performance. Y'all didn't get the finger, Rayer. Y'all didn't get it. I'm just saying that's what happened when I heard somebody. I parked a car a certain way one time, and somebody told me, "Don't be an idiot" or something like that. I was mad. And they got the finger. They got the finger, Rayer, because it was like, do not tell me about parking a car that I'm an idiot. I was a good car parker. So, no, they get what they give. Trey Jones, it's good to see you this evening. Ramon, it's good to see you too. Y'all did not get that finger. I'm sorry. I apologize. So, weak people belittle others. That's right. Weak people, that is. Yeah. So maybe love, approval, or safety seemed connected to performance, is why people fear being wrong. Or maybe we learned that being wrong wasn't simply a mistake, it felt dangerous, right? So we became careful. We became perfectionists. We became people pleasers. We became experts at avoiding mistakes. You're right, Kim. Hurt people do hurt people. So and over time, we stopped trusting ourselves, trying to strategize through all of that. We stopped trusting ourselves. Instead of living, we started managing risk. Instead of making choices, we started, trying to have guaranteed outcomes. But life doesn't work that way. The thing is what I told the person looking, trying to figure out which job she wanted to get. I'm like, neither one of them's the wrong choice. Neither one of them. It's like, what do you want? Because there's not a wrong choice when you're being offered two jobs. The choice is what do you want? That's the only thing that's going to make it wrong, is if you choose something that you don't want. Who invented the middle finger? That's a good question. I'm going to have to put that. Ray, join my next live on Wednesday morning or Friday night. We'll talk about who invented that. Who invented that? Ramon, you were 6. The only way to find out. Yeah. Angie, I ain't playing with this. Thank you for not playing with this. I see it. It's like a whack-a-mole sometimes, isn't it? You were 6 too. Okay. So recently, I was working with a client who lost her job at the beginning of the year, like I told y'all before. And like many people, her position had become part of her identity. And when the job ended, it wasn't just employment that was lost, it was a part of who she was, disappeared too. So she could felt like she was wrong. You know, we certainly feel defeated, and feeling defeated feels like we did something wrong, right? And so as we worked together, we explored what it would mean to let go of that old identity and become open to something new, you know. So it wasn't easy. There was rejection. There was interviews that seemed promising and then went nowhere. There was disappointment and there was self-doubt. There was familiar question many of us ask ourselves, am I good enough? Eventually she received not one, but 2 job offers. 2 job offers. Thank you, Angie. It's heartbreaking habits, I know. Aw. So at first, that sounds like a wonderful problem to have, but now a different fear appeared. A different fear appeared. The one position was familiar but paid less. The other one offered more money but required learning something entirely new, you know? So suddenly she wasn't asking, what do I want? She was asking, what if I make the wrong choice? That's a common thing, you know? And that's what many of us do, you know, because that's what, when I was in coaching, when I went to my coach, she would say, what do you fear, Stacy? And what do you want? Because I needed to release the fear to get what I want, because the fear was holding me back. I miss the funny bird story. Oh, you missed the funny bird. Well, what it was that somebody called me an idiot about the way I parked my car one time. And so when they said idiot, I hate that word. I despise that word. And so when they called me an idiot, I'm like, idiot this. So I'm like, your husband's comment, pretty bird. I know Grinch is back there. He's not paying attention to us. So it's like we get to, what if I make the wrong choice? Again, we're trying to be right, right? And not wrong. And that's what many of us do. So we spend energy trying to not make the wrong decision. Then we spend considering what feels right, instead of saying, which one's going to be best for me? What am I going to, which am I going to do? It's that fear of, the fear, the ego part says, I'm going to stick with what's familiar. What do you say? I didn't see what he said. But so the fear says, I'm going to stick with what's familiar. But the soul's journey is like curious. So it's always about trying to return to that childlike curiosity, not childishness, because a lot of, you know, we went to the childishness to get people to behave the way that we wanted them to behave so that we would feel comfortable, more control of other people. So we've talked about the boundaries we have with ourselves. So when we're doing that, spending more time worrying about the decision and making the wrong decision, I will tell Grinch that you love him, Mom. He may come out when we do our breathing. We're not spending as much energy on, what do I want, right? What do I want? It could light us up. What do I want? We're going to be more worried when we're thinking about, I don't want to make the wrong decision. See, there's 2 different body languages to that. So we walk on eggshells with ourselves when we're afraid of making the wrong decisions. We replay every scenario. I don't know what that is, Anthony Harvey. So we analyze every possibility. We exhaust ourselves searching for certainty. Certainty is like, if I could just find certainty, I could feel secure. The real deal is we're going to be secure sometimes and insecure at other times, like that imposter syndrome when we do try a new job or a new opportunity. Thank you, Robbie. Yes, it is my natural hair color. Trey, my mind is so broken and my head is messed up. It's a miracle I'm even able to write or speak. I've been down the rabbit hole so many times. Sometimes the mind does need time to heal, but we have to feel our feelings to heal. We have to feel our feelings to heal them because they won't. We can't just intellectualize and have them go away. What happened? Is everything okay, Angie and Kim? So, we exhaust ourselves searching for certainty, and certainty never arrives sometimes. So we put fear to the side and ask, what do I want? Yes, yes. Stay focused on what you want. Thank you, Angie. Yes, we stay focused on what we want. You were severely addicted to LSD and mushrooms. Are you clean from LSD and mushrooms now? Okay. Are you clean from, because I had to get in my right mind to be able to feel my feelings, because certainly when I was smoking weed and drinking, I was trying not to feel my feelings, Trey. I'm glad you're clean now. It just is, it's a one day at a time. It's a process. And yeah, the inappropriate comment, girl, I would have threw it out too. Cool, y'all. Okay. That's what I thought it was. So why do we do this? Maybe it's part of its codependency. Many of us learned to focus on what others wanted rather than what we wanted. Doing what others expected helped us to feel accepted, connected, and safe. Maybe some of us experience harsh consequences when we made mistakes. But I was taking it too far. I was eating like 10 hits a day. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad you're still clearing up. It takes a while. It's a day at a time, Trey. It's just a day at a time. Yeah. So maybe some of us experience harsh consequences when we made mistakes. Maybe there were painful experiences that left us carrying guilt, regret, and shame. You will get better. You will get better. Just a day at a time. So maybe there was a tragedy or loss that taught us to fear making the wrong move. Angie is on it. No, she's not making you look bad. Y'all are a great team. Thank y'all so much. Sometimes we're not afraid of the decision itself. We're afraid of the feeling of what we felt before, right? When we felt afraid of being wrong. When we were wrong at some point in time, we might have got chastised. We might have made a terrible mistake. We might, but it's about learning. When I talked about forgiveness, I said we have to forgive ourselves first, because then the mistakes seem less heavy. But the depression and shame and insecurity is what kills me. I know it used to kill me too, Trey. It was a process, and it wasn't like over in 1 year even. I'm going to celebrate 29 years on the 14th, and but it was just a day at a time. I looked up one time, and it's like it was a day at a time, and when I got to 10 years, I was like, I can't believe I stayed clean and sober for 10 years. That was wild. I didn't know I was going to do it 10 years. It was just a day at a time. And before I knew it, and it's just, you're important. Just remembering. Greetings. Greetings, Ruben. Well, I thank you very much. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. Trey Jones, it's like a dark black hole drowning in your soul. I know. I know. Sometimes we see the light, but we're afraid of even seeing the light, aren't we, Trey? Angie, y'all are doing great. Then 10 more years, and so on and so forth. Exactly. Exactly. Hi, Rashard Baker. Thanks, Jesus. Trey Jones. But those who wonder are truly never lost. I love that quote. It's a great quote. So sometimes when we're afraid of being wrong, we're afraid of feeling something we felt before, if we made a mistake. We're afraid of disappointment. Sometimes we're afraid of rejection if we're wrong. Reality is evolving. Exactly. We have to evolve. And when do you get 10 years clean? We wish we had all done it 10 years earlier. Exactly. But I'm so glad that, to be here now. That's part of my beauty secrets, as Atticus was asking me earlier. I do believe just on their own path. I don't get the quote. Cash Patel says, huh? Buzz Killington. Okay. Well, we're almost at the end of this, y'all. So I'll finish with what we have. Oh, Jen, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's what I set my intention to do, is to spread some positive vibes and some inspiration. So thank you for letting me know I'm doing what my intention is. So we could be afraid of rejection. We could be afraid of failure when we're afraid of being wrong. We could be afraid of emotions associated with being wrong before. But here's what I've come to believe. The opposite of fear isn't certainty. The opposite of fear is trust. Trust. Trust in ourselves to make the right decision and not be afraid of making the wrong one. Because when you have two jobs looking at you, you're very welcome, Sam. Thank you. Terry, I love listening to you and you're sharing the strength. Oh, thank you so much, Terry. That means a lot to me. Thank you. So, trust in ourselves. Trust is our ability to handle what comes next, our ability to handle it. So, Trey, I hope that yes, just trust yourself on a daily basis. Angie, yes, trust. So, the opposite of fear is trust. Trust in ourselves, trust in our ability to handle what comes next, trust in even if a decision doesn't unfold exactly as we hoped, we can learn from it. Thank you, Kim. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm glad that it's helping. I really am. Y'all keep me posted. So one of the reasons that I teach what I call the self-trust reset begins by recognizing that there's a protective part of us that wants certainty. And some call, it's the ego. And I don't see the ego as bad. The ego is trying to protect us. If you see a bear, you're about to get hit by a car, you can thank your ego for that. Your central nervous, your sympathetic system and your autonomic system, because it's automatically going to know what to do. That's what your autonomic system does. But sometimes when we're triggered, the autonomic system is having to work a little more than it needs to. So the ego is trying to protect us. It wants safety, it wants predictability, and it wants to avoid pain. The problem is that protection can sometimes become overprotection. Instead of helping us move forward, it can keep us stuck, trying to feel safe. So instead of helping us make decisions, is hope, disappointment, deferred. Smiling dog. Robbie, taking drugs and alcohol and all those naughty things back in the day, I will admit I was very wrong decision, but I'm right now. Yes, that's right. We're not in our right mind. Disappointment is an appointment. They say expectations. We talked about how intuition and expectations, a lot of people who have expectations think that it's intuition. And so when we learn that expectations are an appointment with disappointment, because when I had the expectations, when I was working on the codependency, and I had expectations and I would tell my sponsor something, I'd be twisting off about what I thought another person was thinking or being disappointed about what happened. And she would say, "Oh, you had an expectation." And I'd be like, and until I read this book by Byron Katie called Loving What Is, I come to understand that an expectation is anytime I'm disappointed. And there's realistic expectations and unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations are those expectations that I may have of hoping that somebody's going to take a hint and do what I want them to do for my manipulations. And that is where that's an unreasonable expectation, because not everybody takes the hint. We have to learn to use our big girl and big boy words, and some of us are afraid to do that. Maybe we're afraid of being wrong. Maybe we don't trust ourselves to guide ourselves to what it is that we really want. Maybe we have, we put so much emphasis on somebody else, we're not looking at ourselves. What do I want? That's important to learn to trust yourself, is to know what you want, because you're not going to trust yourself and others typically if we don't know. Smiling dog. Okay, so Rodolfo. Hello, Ty Hughes. Ramon. She is a badass, isn't she? And Trey, she has an aurora that makes you feel like it's going to be all right in a safe zone channeling in here. Ah, that is an amazing compliment, Trey. I love that compliment. That's an honor that I got to receive that compliment. I truly appreciate that. All right. Well, Angie's got you while you go, but keep us posted. Keep me posted, Okay. So, Mark Hast, hello, Trey. People are more paranoid than they can see they are. They really are, because it's that fear. The fear drives the paranoia, the fear of people are out to get me or something, and I was there. I had that fear too. Robbie, yeah, her mom had surgery today, Robbie. Keep her mom in your prayers. So she's at the hospital. Trey, that's because everyone is on a frequency. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And we can raise our own frequency. I had to raise my frequency, heading over to ICU. Okay, keep us posted, Kim. Love you. Marquest, I have social anxiety. A lot of people have social anxiety. And is it like, do you think that what I shared earlier, Mark Cast, I don't know if you were here, in the fear of being wrong and the social anxiety was that, I was afraid of looking stupid. So I was afraid to speak to people because I was afraid if I spoke, then I would look stupid. And that was part of my fear of being wrong because I thought that I had this negative imprint in my mind that I wasn't smart enough, based on a fifth grade teacher who used to say, put your thinking cap on. 2 surgeries, that's right. Kim's had a day. She's had a day, y'all. Send her some good vibes and energy. So, you know, that was some of my social fears. So I don't know if that helps you, Mark, but that's what I try to get on here to do, is to help people feel, we're common here. A lot of us, there's a lot of love in the universe. There is, and there's a lot of love in this channel right now. And I want to thank you all for being here too. So sometimes we're afraid of failure and we're afraid of the emotions we associate with being wrong. You're very welcome, Mark Cast. Trey, my cat helps me change channels in my brain. She puts me on like a calm, loving state. It's amazing what an animal can do in times of great distress. Exactly. Exactly, Trey. Animals are so helpful. Even my Grinch, sometimes if Grinch doesn't show up in my sessions, my clients will be like, Stacy, where's the Grinch? So yeah, animals are amazing. Yep. People will ask me on here, where's Grinch? Eventually I'm going to have t-shirts that say the Grinch fan club featuring Stacy, mindset coach. Eventually. So back to getting serious. What emotions, the emotions that we associate with being wrong. That's a lot of times what we're afraid of. But here's what I've come to believe. The opposite of fear isn't certainty. The opposite of fear is trust. Did I lose my spot? Trust in ourselves, trust in our ability to handle what comes next. That's the solution. That's the solution to do that too. And I had a cat that used to do that too, Trey. It seemed like she would wipe my tears when I would cry. I would hold Kitty Bo and she would like wipe my tears when I would cry. So I'm getting tired. Self-trust reset begins by recognizing that there's a protective part of us that wants certainty. And some call it the ego. And like I said, I don't see the ego as bad. The ego is trying to protect us. It wants safety, it wants predictability, and it wants to avoid pain. The problem is that protection can be overprotection, like I said earlier. Instead, it helps us it's instead of helping us move forward, it keeps us stuck, keeps us backward, because we're remembering with our perceptions other times of failure. And so we're more focused on the failure than we are of the moving forward. Okay. I lost internet. Y'all know we had a earthquake earlier. That's what I was telling people. So now I lost internet for a few moments, but I'm on data now. I was just thinking, whereas Grinch is in the Grinch house, probably when we do the breathing, which we'll be doing soon, he'll come out. All right. So sometimes the fear of being wrong, the fear of, the ego, it helps it, instead of helping us make decisions, it endlessly has us questioning ourselves, questioning the decisions. So we may hit repeat and repeat and be just uncertain. And then when we make a decision, we may be like, oh, I should have made the other decision. That was one of the other things I learned when I was in coaching myself, is that she would say, don't should on yourself. No, shoulda, woulda, coulda, because what is. And, that's how we deal with disappointments. That's how we deal with expectations, is loving what is there's not a wrong choice unless it's illegal, immoral, and socially unacceptable. So, all right, y'all getting silly. I'm about to be done here. So I'm going to stick to my notes pretty well instead of the silly comments. And then there's another part of us. Call it your soul. Call it your intuition. Call it your inner wisdom. Call it your higher self. Whatever language feels right for you, there's something within us that often knows the direction before our minds can explain it. Okay? The journey of healing is not choosing one over the other, not saying I'm going to go to this extreme of the ego or I'm going to go to this extreme of the soul. It's creating harmony in between them. Like in my program, we use the example of Stonehenge, where you have two columns and then you have a cross column here. And that would be the harmony connecting both the ego and the soul, because you need both to run your life, to be in that harmony. We can't just fluffy up and over here and then just lows over here. It's about bringing it together so that we can be real and heal. They say, have a saying in recovery, you can't save your face and your behind at the same time. You got to learn to be real. We have to, cry if we have to cry, do what we need to do. Feel those feelings. Feelings healing. Hello, Pat Treadwell, and Mark Massacre Mark. So the harmony, that's the goal. It's allowing the protective part to have a voice without allowing it to run the entire show, right? It's not that need to be right all the time. Listening to wisdom while acknowledging fear. That's the part of being humble, is when you can listen to wisdom while you acknowledge fear. That's humility. Humility is not humiliation. Moving forward, even when certainty isn't available, just doing the next right thing. That's what we sometimes do. A good path to being, as you have described, is following the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Dr. Mark J. Massari. I'm sorry. I massacred your name. Massari. I'm getting tired, Mark. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Much respect. All right. So, yesterday we talked a little about balance. For years, I focused on trying to create the perfect balance in my life. Today, I see things differently. Life itself isn't just balanced in the way we often imagine. Rodolfo. Hello again. Today, I see things differently. Life isn't just balanced the way that we imagine life moves. There's highs and there's lows. There's also expansions and contractions, just like breathing, just like our heartbeat, the rhythm of our heartbeat. So no heartbeat creates a perfectly straight line. They don't. If there's a straight line, we do not live it, So, in fact, if it did, would have a problem. We'd have a problem if it created a straight line. So life is movement, growth is movement. So healing is movement. The goal isn't perfect balance. The goal is learning how to regulate ourselves while life moves. Learning how to stay present while uncertainty exists. Thank you so much, Mark Massari. I appreciate that, Dr. Mark Massari. No, we talked about that, Dr. Mark Massari, not being perfect, because the topic tonight is, what if we're wrong? And a lot of people who strive for perfectionism have that fear of being wrong. And it's okay to be wrong. And we're all perfectly imperfect and unspecially special. So I agree, Robbie. The most important thing in my life is knowing right from wrong. Yeah, being connected with your consciousness. Yeah. So learning how to return to ourselves when fear takes over. And that's where the acceptance begins. And faith too, not by eliminating uncertainty, because I know faith has helped me a lot during uncertainty, but by changing our relationship with it. And I'm not talking about religious faith. I'm talking about faith that I'm going to get through it when times are hard. And faith for the things I desire, that I'm going to get to it. So Why am I afraid of this decision? When we, instead of exploring the what ifs, what if this happens? What if that happens, and catastrophizing? What if we begin exploring the whys? Why I want to do this? This is where you set your intention and motivation, is when you can explore the whys. Why do I want to do it? Why do I not want to do it? Faith in our own abilities, exactly. BB sings, sometimes people just need to cry. You just let them cry. It's okay. Nothing wrong with people crying. Ask ourselves, why does being wrong feel so threatening? Why do I need certainty before I can move forward? Why don't I trust myself? Those questions often reveal far more than the endless loops of what if this happens and what if that happens. I've learned so much from people of the world, and I learned quite a bit from, I know I did too, Dr. Mark Masari, I did too. Love one another as I have loved you. Exactly. Yeah, because that's how I learn the hard way sometimes, and that's through the mistakes. Paxton Bear, is it better to? Okay, we're not going to talk about that here. That's not on topic. So, what if being wrong isn't the worst thing that could happen, right? What if it's not the worst thing that can happen is if we make a wrong choice? What if staying stuck is the worst thing that could happen? What if every decision doesn't need to be perfect? What if every choice simply is just the next step for your growth? Yeah, you didn't read the room. No. We're almost done. We're talking about what's wrong with being, what if you're wrong? Joseph, I don't believe anyone is wrong. Paxton Bear, that's a mistake I will grow from. Thank you, Paxton Bear. Yeah, it's not up to me to decide who's wrong or right unless I'm in a court of law. Unless I'm in a court of law, then I guess that would be a thing, but I'm not. So it's, where am I going to focus? I'm going to focus on what I want, not on who's wrong and who's right and all of this. I'm just not focusing on that. The real question isn't what if I'm wrong, but rather, what if I trust myself enough to find my way no matter what happens? Because that life is full of that. I talked the other night about how people play video games and they're overcoming things when they play those video games. You noticed a little draw in my speech. Are you from the U.S.? I'm from Adirondack Mountain area of New York, Dr. Mark. I am from the U.S. I'm from the South. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. You did acknowledge. You did hear that. You did hear that. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, but I'm sitting near beautiful Cancun. Do you know we had a little earthquake today? I've never experienced an earthquake before, and I didn't even know it was an earthquake because it was very, very subtle. But I felt like my equilibrium was off, and it was wild. Yes, Juice, I'm from Texas. So thank you for asking, Dr. Mark. So what if you trust yourself enough to find your way no matter what happens? Life is going to have these challenges and obstacles, challenges, changes, and chapters. So we just get to navigate through it. What if there is no wrong choice? They're all going to be a learning experience, no matter which way. Even when you think you're taking the safe way, what I've learned is my trying to take the safe way, I could learn it now or I could learn it later, but I'm going to learn it. I'm going to learn it. They're beautiful, Angie. I've never been there. I bet they are beautiful. So when we talk about regulation and regeneration, thank you for your acknowledgement, Stace. You have the earthquake, and I felt the tremor as soon as I looked at. Oh, thanks, Dr. Mark. So we are about to breathe, because regulation and regeneration puts us in our right mind. Is that sometimes when we're afraid of being wrong, when we're afraid, when we're running from the ego, we don't realize that our respiratory system, our digestive system, and our cardiovascular system are overworking. They're overdoing. They're over experiencing this anxiety, this sick at our stomach, this, losing our breath. Ramon, all choices lead to different outcomes. So that being said, yes, there are no wrong choices. Exactly, Ramon. Exactly. Thank you so much for that. So, darlings, I've been talking a long time now. I've been in a couple of wars. Have had, dying children and people in your arms in Africa and Indonesia. Life has a way of changing a man. It does. It does. Thank you for serving. Thank you for doing that. Thank you. Yeah. It changes our whole perspective, doesn't it? Robbie, the best part about being wrong is learning to get it right. That's the best part. Exactly. Because life is an adventure. It's an adventure. Thank you so much, you all, for being here. Let's breathe together. Will y'all breathe with me? Because we're going to regulate and regenerate our cells. Okay? I look forward to seeing y'all. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, would you please subscribe? I'd love to see you again. Y'all are an amazing group here. I've enjoyed all the comments in here. Thank you, Angie and Kim, for moderating and keeping enjoying the comments we don't enjoy out. Thank you so much. So I sending prayers to Angie, to Kim and her mom and Angie. Thanks again. And I'm getting too tired. I'm cross-eyed. So it's time to breathe, darlings. I need to turn the air conditioner up too. Thank y'all so much. Y'all are amazing. Every one of y'all. I know they did a great job. Teamwork's dream work. They did good. So we're going to breathe in just that certainty of being alive. You know you're alive right now when you got a breath, and there's all kinds of choices that we get to make as long as we got a breath. So let's do this. We're going to do 5 of these, okay, for regulation and regeneration. Notice how you feel. You're going to feel safe when you regulate, and your central nervous system, autonomic system, and that sympathetic responses will calm down, where you can get the parasympathetic, the good stuff flowing, okay? So we can keep growing. So let's take it. We're going to do 5. Take a deep breath in. Grinch, are you going to breathe with us? Grinchy, do I need to start tapping? You haven't made an appearance. He's back there playing with his tennis shoe. Grinch. I'm going to tap. You want me to tap, or what if I rub my hands together? See, he's got some control issues. Y'all ready for this? See, I know how to get him out of his house. He's ready to breathe. You ready to breathe? Say hello. Say hello to everybody. Leo Lee. Unworthy it is. All right, Trey. Well, he's not really nervous. He was playing. He plays. But he does take his feathers out. He likes doing that. But he's not stressed. Trust this little 1 ounce. I don't know how many ounces this bird weighs, but he runs this whole house. So, all right, let's take a deep breath in. Hold it. And release. Just do your best. If you can't hold it as long, that's okay. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Breathe. Hold it. Release. Just 2 more. Breathe. Hold it. Release. Last one. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. All right, y'all feel better now? Grinchy, everybody says, hey, Grinchy. You tell me you run this show? Do you run this show? Yeah. Its ego is the size of an elephant, Ramon. It is indeed. You're welcome, Robbie. Thank you. It has been great, hasn't it? Yes, this has been a great group tonight. Thank you all so much for being here. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and come back again. I'll be back on here Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. And if you miss it, then you know what I love about YouTube is that you can watch the replay. And I'll be back Friday night. Yeah. Thank you so much, Angie. Kim, keep me posted on your mama. And y'all have a good evening, okay? Much love. Thank you so much. Bye.